All right, welcome back to Silver and Black today. Raider Nation, I don't know what to say to you, but we'll get to it. It's time for the BetUS Postgame Live reaction show brought to you by our friends at BetUS. By the way, you can get 150% bonus on your first deposit, up to $2,000, and 125% on your next two deposits if you use the code YouTube150. The code YouTube150. On your next deposit. And that's where Mo and I bet our football is at BetUS. So go up and see that. We will obviously put that down in the description. For those of you who missed the live show, this is the BetUS live post-game show. Again, 150% bonus on your first deposit, up to $2,000, by the way, and then 125% on your next two deposits. Use the code YouTube150. All right, it is time for that post-game show, Silver and Black today. And Raider Nation, wish I had better news for you. Obviously, you guys know Raiders lose 36-22. Yes, they scored a touchdown at the end of the game. 36-22 to the Carolina Panthers, the 0-2 Carolina Panthers, who are now 1-2 as well. And we're going to get into it here. We appreciate you guys being with us. As you know, we are an Odyssey Sports original podcast. And on the postgame show, it's me, Scott Branson, along with our good friend, Murf, from Raiders Fan Radio. Make sure you follow Murf on X at _Murf, M-U-R-F. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel over with Raiders Fan Radio, because they do great stuff on Wednesday nights. He is our voice of the fan. I know he's going to have a lot to say. It's not going to be great, but hey, we're going to get into it. Just there's no other way to put this, Raider Nation, but the Raiders got dominated in every aspect of this game at home, coming off an emotional win against Baltimore, where they came back in the fourth quarter. Everybody seemed very excited about that. Okay, now you get home against one of the worst, if not the worst team in the NFL, worst defense in the NFL. This is a team who gave up. They were down 40-0 against the Saints at halftime in game one. They were down 20-0 against the Chargers in game two. So you felt pretty good about opening up the slate at home at Allegiant Stadium against this team, but it did not go that way. Murf, I want to get your initial reaction to this, because it's not like it needs a lot of in-depth analysis, in my view, because look, in football, Murf, when you dominate the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, usually things aren't going to end up pretty good.
Yeah, not a ton of analysis required here on this one. I mean, I'm sure there are tape people out there, and God bless you, the guys that run down film and break all this stuff down. But I just give you a dopey fan's opinion, based on what I saw here in my bonus room watching this game. And this was unbelievably embarrassing for the Raiders, considering the way that everything was set up going into this game. We had a huge letdown, and here I was on this show a couple of weeks ago saying thank you to the 2024 Raiders for relieving us of the burden of expectation based on the performance against the Chargers. But then they turn around and have this unbelievable performance in the East Coast time zone, early time slot against the Baltimore Ravens, an MVP-led Super Bowl favorite. And so we got our hopes back up, and then now here we are back down again. And it's unbelievable to me, and I will say this forever until the Raiders change it. It doesn't matter who the head coach is, who the owner is, what city they play in, who the coordinators are, who the quarterback is. It's always the same shit. It's the same thing. It's on repeat. I mean, we have now added the Andy Dalton-led Panthers to the Nick Mullins-led Niners, along with the 2019 Jaguars, 2020 Falcons, 2020 Dolphins, 2021 Bears, 2022 Saints, 2022 Colts, 2022 Rams, 2023 Bears, and the 2023 Vikings. When are we going to learn? When is my fan brain and my silver and black heart gonna figure it out that when I say the team has relieved us of the burden of expectations, I'm gonna stick to it until they have a track record of proving it wrong? Scott, this was so bad, and listen, I'm gonna say this and I'll shut up. I sat on the couch with my son, my 18-year-old son, my youngest, Vinny. First chance we had a game. First chance we had a chance to watch a game together this week. Mm-hmm. And about partway through it, he was like, "Dad, this is a slog. Like, it's just a rough game to watch." And so as rough as it was on my couch, I feel so bad for all the people that spent their hard-earned money to fly into Las Vegas, to drive into Las Vegas. We had tons of our listeners that were hitting us with pictures and, texts and messages and all that stuff. Raider Nation, like, they showed up for this game. And what's been a big common theme of this team in Las Vegas is that, there are times where the opposing team takes over our stadium. Well, guess what? The Carolina Panthers don't travel, and a lot of Raider Nation showed up today. They showed up at the tailgates. They spent their hard-earned money, and then this is what they got. Like, guess what, Raiders? Like, and then, listen, I'm sorry, and I'm not a fan of being overly critical of the organization as a whole or the franchise or Mark Davis. I think that that could be low-hanging fruit. But seriously, though, like, you want to build the fan base? You don't like the idea that another team could come in and take over? Well, then don't do shit like this. Like, these are the kind of things that lead to those things. Like, build momentum.
Oh yeah.
Build momentum. Tommy Kelly used to say, stop, boom. Well, here we go. That's what the freaking Raiders are. Stop, boom. It's like every time we think that we've got some momentum, it all goes to pot. It's unbelievable that this Raiders team is still in the same course. It's been since January 26, 2003. Since that game. Like, Scott, you and I both got kids. They are grown at this point.
Yes.
And I've seen minimal glimpses of positivity around this Raiders football team. It's unbelievable, man. Listen, again, I'm not sitting here going to try to blame this person or that person. There are so many things to go around. There's not one glaring thing. It ain't just Getsy. It ain't just AP. It ain't just Minshew. It ain't just Mark Davis. Give them all. Everybody deserves blame for this one. Sorry.
No. Listen, I agree with most of what you said there. I think I'm seeing in the chat too. By the way, thanks for all your super chats there for Raiders Fan Radio and for this channel, because they all go to the One Nation Foundation. So thank you for that. Anything you send goes straight there. But I'll say this: look, you look at an organization. You're right. Everybody takes blame on it. What I find just very curious, and again, a lot of people in the chat are keying in on the quarterback position. It's a great question. What do you do at the quarterback position? And I'll get to that in a second. 2 is the offensive line. Obviously, there's issues there. On the defensive side, defensive line, Max Crosby, maybe that ankle's worse than people thought because he was a non-factor tonight for the most part. And then you had the defensive backfield, nice plays here and there. And then all of a sudden letting Andy Dalton pick them apart like the guy was going to win the MVP, 26 of 37, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay, so they got toasted by an offense. Again, I know that was under Bryce Young, so it's different. And coming into this game, they expected the Panthers to do better with a veteran QB. Andy Dalton might not be sexy. He might not be a Hall of Famer, but he is a good starting quarterback. He's proven it all his years in Cincinnati, all of that stuff. So you have all that coming in, and the Raiders had their set of injuries. I'm not making excuses for the injuries because the guys who were there, I thought the effort was lacking. I really did. I'm not saying they didn't try at first, especially, but I just thought the effort was lacking. I thought the team looked unprepared. That falls on the players and coaches, in my view. The coaching staff and these players coming home. It's your home opener. To your point about Raider fans, Raider Nation spending their hard-earned money to go to Allegiant Stadium, which is the most expensive place to go to in the NFL now. Yeah, you should be out there fighting like cats and dogs to make sure your team does better. And I didn't see that from the beginning. Outside of that first long drive, which everybody looked great on, thought you were thinking, wow, this is the offense we saw in the fourth quarter last week against Baltimore. But no, they come out and they're unable to do it. Yes, Getsy, the play calling was ridiculous. It was terrible. Gardner Minshew starts off in the shotgun all the time, and everybody's, it's because he's short. Listen, Kyler Murray's not always in the shotgun. He's shorter than Gardner Minshew. So my point there is when you start running plays 3 to 4 yards back from the line of scrimmage, you think you're going to be successful, especially when your offensive line isn't there yet. So you start doing that, you're losing yards or you get no gain. They can't get the running game going. And we know, Murf, this is what Antonio Pierce told us all of last year and into this offseason. We got to run the ball. We got to run the ball. We got to run the ball. We're going to be tough. We're going to be physical. I didn't see any tough or physical sans a couple defensive plays from the offense. I saw Brock Bowers targeted late and the Aiden O'Connell drive late in the game. It's garbage time, folks. Look, I like Aiden O'Connell. The whole quarterback thing, we'll see where it goes. If you watch Gardner Minshew his whole career, Murph, he's been very streaky. So this doesn't surprise me. So Mo and I said all year, Murf, and I don't know if you guys said this on your show, that I just thought both these quarterbacks were going to play. One's going to do well, and when the other one's not doing well, they're going to put the other guy in, and he might start a couple games. I just thought that that's how it was going to go. And sure enough, it's gone. But I look at how this team did, and you look at the stats and all that, and we'll get into it a little bit, but they can't run the ball. Zamir White, 3.4 yards per average, 34 yards, 10 carries for 34 yards. This team, Carolina, was the worst team in the NFL against the run, them and the Colts. Okay. And what does Getsy do? He tries to run the ball more. He doesn't throw the passes. And then when they do throw, they're throwing underneath all the time. So you can't get anything going except for a couple of long shots to Tucker. So you're right, Murf. And I'm taking a long way of saying I agree with you, basically. And that is, there's a lot going on here that isn't right. And you're the GM and you're the head coach in Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco. You've got to sit there and think, okay, yeah, it's only week 3. We're going into week 4 now, but this offense doesn't work. And the defense has some issues too, but the offense does not work. Something has to be done.
Absolutely. And I want to say too that, you know, as critical as I'm going to be and already have been and going to continue to be on this, I don't doubt the heart. Like there are players, listen, like guys like Max, you know what I mean, who you know, maybe wouldn't have been out there if he's not Max Crosby because of an injury. You know, the heart of the players and the you know, the want to and everything, like from Devontae Adams. I mean, all the leaders of the football team, but I don't doubt that. And I think that some of the people that are on Twitter and saying like, oh, this team just gave up, I don't sense that. But I think that there was, but I've said that to say this. I think that I agree with you, Scott, and that there was something fundamentally wrong.
Yes.
It requires change. And let's not be afraid of change. And this is one of the things that I get caught up with on coaches is that they get so fixated around a thing. Like, well, we're going to do it this way, or we're going to do it this way. Instead of like taking the hit to your pride, taking the hit to your ego and recognizing and say, okay, well, that thing doesn't work. So let's do something different. Come on, Marvin Lewis, like be a freaking voice to Antonio Pierce. Come on, Tom Coughlin. Come on, Joe Philbin. Come on, you guys that have experience being head coaches and know the ups and downs of an NFL season, know what it takes to win and lose. A guy like Tom Coughlin knows what it takes to win 2 darn Super Bowls, for crying out loud. Be a voice to Antonio Pierce and help this man get this thing corrected in a way where he can change. Because listen, this is on AP too, and I'm not an overly critical AP guy because I love Antonio Pierce, but he's got to take this one on the nose too. And Scott, I'm with you that like that commitment to running the football. Great. You should. You've got a great defense. Okay, now be able to run the football, and that should equate to success. But if it's not going well, then get away from it. The whole run, pass thing, it's like, stop, man. We're run, and then we're passing on 3rd and long. It's so tired. It's like, again, and I'm not an X's and O's guys. I've never been I'll spit it out. Never so mad. The words are flying out faster than my brain can keep up.
It's all right.
All right, here we go.
Okay. I love it.
I'm not an X's and O's guy, but here's the thing. If it's not working, then move away from it and find it. Like the whole develop plays behind the line of scrimmage thing gets completely lost on me too. It got lost on me last week, Scott. And and once they started committing to running downhill and passing beyond the line of scrimmage, they found success. This week, they never did. Like, if it's not working early, then why can't we get away from it? And I know the offensive line got banged up. You mentioned that they were struggling, and Munford went down, right? So you don't have the defensive presence that you do under normal circumstances because Max Crosby's got a bum wheel. Marcus Epps goes down later on, like whatever. So those things, like why don't the Raiders do a better job of whatever those adjustments are? And I think that's an overrated term, but whatever they are, why don't we move through those as the game goes on instead of staying seemingly stagnant, which this fan's eyes and most everybody else that's in the chat room and otherwise, and shout out the chat room, by the way. We thank you for those super chats coming in. I can't keep up with the chat on this show here. I can't even keep up with the chat on my own show, for crying out loud. But thank you very, very, very much. And all those chats will go to Raiders related charities. But yes, Scott, like if our eyes can see it, then you would think that a guy like Luke Getsy, whose literal legacy and career is hanging on the success of this football team, would be willing to do something different than run, pass.
Yes. And what's amazing about this, and let me know too in the chat if you guys agree with me on this, because last week we came on the show and we talked about, hey, in the fourth quarter, guess what? Getsy said, yeah, running's not working. So let's go to our two best talented offensive weapons, Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers, right? So you would think that, they go away from that and say, you know what? We should do that again. No, they don't. They don't. It took them forever to get the ball to those guys. They were targeted. I mean, you through the first half, I think Brock Bowers was targeted twice, and so was Devontae Adams. When Alexander Mattison is leading your team in targets, not a good thing. Nothing against Alexander Mattison. I think he's a good piece to have on this Raiders roster. But I will tell you, you have got to learn from the past. And this is getting to a situation where I think that if this offense continues to be broken, they have not played one full game yet. They haven't played a full half yet.
Yeah.
Right? One great quarter against Baltimore. That was it. So you got to look at that and say, wait, so through 3 games, 12 quarters of football, we've played one well on offense. That's got to be partly on the quarterback, yes, but also on the offensive coordinator. So everybody was tweeting out that picture of AP talking to Getsy last week and saying, okay, you're going to do it again? There's got to be some serious, deep conversations about where this team is going to go on offense the rest of the year, because this is not going to work for anybody. And this team won't even get to 5 wins if this is how they're going to play the rest of the way.
Yeah, Scott. I mean, I don't know. You can't get past the Carolina Panthers, for crying out loud. Like, yeah. I'm with you. Like, I hate to say that Vegas might be right again. You know what I mean? But here we go. Like, we had all this optimism, and it was thwarted as of week 1, but then restored when it came to week 2. But then now here we go again. Like, I don't know how, even if they come out and beat the shit. I gotta stop swearing.
That's okay. That's all right. It's all right. It's post game. We can do that.
All right. Even if they beat the ever loving shit out of the Browns next week, which we're gonna hope that they're gonna do. Even if that happens, how do you and that's where we are at now as Raider fans. Like, even if there's like a really dominant performance and we beat the Browns, second game at Allegiant Stadium, all right, let's go. Are you that? Are you that as a Raider fan? Are you that here we go, we're back? No, not this guy. I'm not. I can't. It's so funny, man. And I know, because you guys are impartial and you guys are observational and objective and so brilliant at it. Where us knucklehead Raider fans, you should see our group texts, man. Between me and Michelle.
Oh, I get them. I get them from our listeners too. I mean, I had people were so excited, Murf, right? And that's where I feel the worst, because I actually woke up this morning thinking, man, Raiders could beat Carolina. And I said on the show on Thursday, I said, look, no team in the NFL is a pushover. It's a tough league.
Yeah.
Even the bad teams are professional. So I said that, but in my mind, I said, they'll win this game. They'll win this game. And then, boy, I saw Cleveland today and they were terrible. And so I'm thinking, even their defense isn't very good right now. So I'm thinking, boy, they could be 4-1. Right. And I have to apologize to everybody out there who last week was like, oh yeah, we beat Baltimore, but we still stink. Because in some ways I understand the mentality now, looking at it from a fan perspective, especially because, wait a minute, this great win, we come back, boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden you go out there and you get throttled by one of the worst teams in the NFL. So now it happened to the Bengals too in week 1 against the Patriots. They're not a very good team either. But I think that this is such an emotional piece. It's such a time when everybody had so much positivity coming into the season. And so when you lose a game, okay, fine. But when you lose it like that, and you lose it like that at home, when you've had a 6-3 record over the last 9 games at home, which is pretty dang good. And that's where I think it leaves so much on the table for people. And it's so difficult because of all of those reasons. I'll let you have the last word here before we head to a quick break.
I'll just say it, man. I'll never be embarrassed to be a Raider fan, but I get embarrassed by my optimism. And that's the general consensus around our group text is that, we have one with our made men, and then our Raiders fan radio crew and my family and everyone's emotion and sentiment around this is the same. I'm embarrassed that I let myself get caught up again. Yeah. It happened again. When I said it was never going to happen, it happened again. And so, and maybe that's just the plight of a Raider fan, and maybe one day it will change. But listen, man, I've turned the calendar quite a few times now. Like, I'm not a spring chicken. And I barely remember in the early days of my childhood, the Raiders being a dominant football team. That was a long time ago. And I feel for the fans that traveled into Las Vegas. I feel for the younger fans that haven't had an opportunity to see this team be dominant. And I don't know if it's a testament to our commitment and should be like a badge to wear about the idea that we get optimistic and encouraged every year and still don't figure it out, or if it's just, like I said, if it's just embarrassing and we got to learn, do better.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of, and I think I said this to you after the week 1 loss, which was you just want to see the team get better each week. Like I said, they could lose. Like if they got better against Baltimore, which they did sort of at the end, and maybe that was just all smoke and mirrors, but then they come in against Carolina. I don't care. They don't have to beat them 50-0, but if they could beat them 24-17, fine. It doesn't matter. It's a home game. It's a win. They all look the same in the win column, right? But that's not what we saw. And so that's where it's discouraging. All right. We're going to take a quick break, tell you about our friends at BetUS, and we come back. We'll kind of wrap up the show. We'll talk a little bit about moving forward. And then we'll also have Murf, as he does every show, because you got to be involved. You got to help those in Raider Nation that need our help. We'll tell you about the One Nation Foundation when we come back. It's Scott. It's Murf. It is Silver and Black today. The postgame edition. Raiders throttled 36-22 by the Panthers. We're coming right back. All right, video audience. I just want to tell you now about our great sponsors over at BetUS. And if you were betting football like I did, and yes, I actually took a bunch of Raider props today, all of them lost. So my account has gone down significantly, as you can see in the corner there. But I want to tell you about BetUS and what they got going here for us. As I told you in the pregame show, and also at the start of this show, BetUS has a special deal for our listeners here where you can get 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. And I just got logged out, so I will log back in because that's what that's what video does, right? So we'll do that. And you go in and you get your initial deposit, your first deposit, 150% bonus, up to $2,000. And then on your next two deposits, we'll give you 125% as well. You just have to use this special code, which I'm going to show you here as well, because if you don't have this code, then you don't get the deal. So make sure you write this down. And that is easy. It's just YouTube 150. So when you go to sign up, it'll ask you for a promo code and you just say YouTube 150 and there you go. But we'll get this. And as you guys know, on Thursday, Mo and I go through here and we make some bets, and you saw some of them this week. And unfortunately, those about the Raiders didn't have. And I was thinking about doing this one tonight because this is the Chiefs game, right? You'd want me to bet on the Falcons, but I don't know that the Falcons have a chance. Chiefs only favored by 3 points. So we'll see what goes on. But great people over at BetUS. Make sure you check it out. Again, YouTube 150 is the code there. And we appreciate you guys stopping by and tell them we sent you. All right, we are back here and we're going to get it rolling. Welcome back to Silver and Black today, the post-game show sponsored by our good friends at BetUS. Again, the code YouTube150, and you get 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000 and 125% on 2 more deposits. So appreciate BetUS being a part of this. Murf from Raiders Fan Radio is with us. I am Scott Branson, your host, and make sure you follow Murf on X. It's amusing. It's fun. His pictures during the game are funny as well. So make sure you do that at _Murf, MURF. And I am at LV Goalie, the show, SNB today. Murf, we talked about all the ugliness of the tag. I do want to say Trey Tucker. Let's talk about one positive, right? Trey Tucker had a nice long pass there. He looked better. He looks like he was developing some kind of rhythm. It's the only rhythm we saw all night, really, from Gardner Minshew, who did not have a great game either. But it's encouraging to see Trey Tucker emerging if he can just consistently get the ball. And if they could consistently get the ball to the other playmakers, then maybe we could be a little bit happier about it. But in a time and in the last 5 years where the Raiders have had so much trouble drafting and developing young players, it's nice to see this young man come along and start to really be a weapon that eventually, when they get the crap together on offense, he's going to be very, very dangerous.
Yeah, we did a fun little segment where we were talking about bold predictions of players that were going to break out in this game, because we all thought that a whole bunch of people were going to have a big game. And so we were talking about Jacory Bennett, who I thought had a decent game. Jack Jones really, we were looking for him for a pick there. But Trey Tucker was the one that my co-host Swag Jeff brought up. He was like,
Jeff.
Yeah, he was like, Trey Tucker, like, you looking for a big game at him, because we felt like that after last week, everyone was going to key on Devontae and Brock. And so when they did that it was going to free up Trey Tucker. And so now listen, it was garbage time when he started linking up a whole bunch there with AOC, but we did definitely see the big play to him early in the game from Minshew. And like, where does that go? And those are the things that just get so confusing to me. Is where does that stuff go? Like, why not press the ball down the field? Why not? Like, one of the criticisms that I always had of Derek was like, when you're in the red zone, like, why not get it up to a player, to one of your best guys, and let him give an opportunity to go make a play? Like,
yes.
We don't see that out of Minshew in this game hardly at all, where it's like, trust Devontae. Like, and I know Devontae had a couple of drops and that they were influenced by the defense. It wasn't like they just clanked his hands and fell out. They were influenced by the defense, but it's like, why not give him an opportunity? Why are we not giving like that ball to Trey Tucker? I mean, it wasn't like he was wide open and it was a hinge underthrown. If he had a little bit more oomph behind that thing, it might have been a damn touchdown. But point being, though, is that why are we not trusting the guys that do that well? Why are we not trusting the ball down the field more? What did the Raiders, I saw there was a stat on there, and somebody in the chat room will know, but it was like we had the lowest passes over 10 yards of any team this season or something like that.
It's the 10 to 20 yard range. And tonight they had, I think, 3 up until the last drive. I haven't checked the stats since the last drive, but yeah, it was all inside the numbers and all inside 10 to 15 yards at most.
And so it's not like we don't have people that can get themselves downfield. Jacoby Myers doesn't even show up until garbage time.
Yeah.
Come on now. Like, there's something broken there. And again, is that Getsy? Is that Minshew? Is it a combination of all? Is it because the offensive line gives our quarterback zero time to be able to sit back there? Is he sitting back there too long when the pocket starts breaking down? We heard reports that, Michael Mayer's running wide open down the middle of the field and Gardner's not delivering the ball. And listen, I'm Mr. Minshew mania over here, but if he's missing opportunities for this team to be successful, well, then put his ass on the bench. And I'm not saying that that AOC is going to step in and be a savior for us, but if it's not working with one guy and it's not working to that level of an abject failure, well, then move on to the next guy and let him be the abject failure. And then if he's the abject failure, then move on to Carter Bradley and let that guy be the abject failure. But keep swinging until you find until you find something that works. And listen, and this is where I will. It sucks that critics can be right, but the more the Raiders lose and the more the Raiders fail, the more correct and accurate all the critics can be. And everybody that you can come up with a million different reasons to be critical because it's low-hanging fruit and it's the path of least resistance. But the point being, though, is that as long as you're critical, you're proven right until you prove all those critics wrong. And I said this in the offseason, and I believe it now, and I know you and Mo believe it too. You got to swing on a quarterback until you land on one. This regime told us that they weren't into having a Band-Aid at that position, and guess what? We got 2 goddamn Band-Aids. So what are we going to do about it, Raiders? What are we going to do? We going to have Darnold next year? Is going to be our starter? Is that the next move?
Might be. He's looking pretty dang good. I'd like him right now if I was the Raiders. But yeah, but that goes back to the point. We had a lot of really well-meaning folks. They weren't arguing or angry. Right before the season started, a lot of people were writing in or calling into our show saying, why are you guys only picking these guys to win 7 or 8 games? We got better. And Mo and I would say, well, yeah, better in certain aspects, but in other aspects not. And by the way, all the other teams got better too. Now, that doesn't explain a loss to Carolina today because Carolina's a mess up front on both sides of the ball and they dominated the Raiders. So that is, to me, goes back to preparation and back to the offense. Murf, as you said, something's wrong. And could it be OC? Absolutely. Can it be quarterback? Absolutely. Offensive line? Absolutely. All things together. But now it's going to be, unfortunately for him, stepped right into the job. Antonio Pierce got to figure it out, whatever it is. Does he need to say, hey, Luke, we're doing this now? Or does he need to say, hey, I'm going to get you some help because clearly things aren't going the way they need to go? Something's got to happen there. And that to me, because like you said, you can't expect to do the same thing over and over again and get different results. And I see that's what's happening. I see play calling. Somebody said it tonight. It's as bad as it was under Josh McDaniels. And it might be exactly that in a different way, but it still is. And so they've got to figure it out. And the defense today just didn't look prepared well. I don't know what happened. And people are bagging on Max Crosby a little bit. And I'm not making excuses, but with an ankle sprain like that, Max is always going to play. He could have gunshot wounds and missing a foot, and he would still go out and play. Right? I mean, he's a tough MFer. He's going to do that. Yeah. But sometimes you got to save a player from himself. So why he wasn't so effective tonight, I'm not going to look. I'll give the Panthers credit for winning the game. Andy Dalton had a good game. You got to give it to him. But at the same time, I also don't believe that the Raiders played their best game that they're possible playing. There was no pressure there for most of the night. Wilkins had a couple nice plays, but overall, they just could not get the pass rush. The linebackers today, Spillane had a nice play. Tommy Eichenberg finally got in there, but he looked a little slow, missed some tackles. Oh, that's the other thing, Murph. Before we get off the negatives, we talk about
positives.
We talked about Trey Tucker. So you look at the way my biggest concern with the Raider defense outside, I knew they were going to have some pockets where they were missing some talent, and they will address that eventually. The tackling is atrocious, and I don't know how this is happening. It's a couple years ago under John Gruden, I thought it was really bad. It started to get a little better. And then under McDaniels, it started to get a little better at times because Patrick Graham was there. But then now it seems like these guys just are missing tackles. And I don't understand at the pro level of football and the Raiders' talent they have there, why they're missing tackles. It drives me batty. And today we saw plays that were a 4 or 5 yard gain turn into 8 or 11 yard gain because they couldn't tackle.
Yeah, and it's so inconsistent week to week. Like we were handling Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson last week.
Exactly.
And now we can't handle Andy Dalton and I don't even remember who the other guy, I don't even remember the running back's name for crying out loud. But I remember Deontay Johnson because he tore us up and missed tackles.
Chuba Hubbard, by the way.
Yeah, there we go, Hubbard. Thank you. I was trying to block it out, Scott. But yeah, man, like it's unbelievable the way that the breakdown and the inconsistencies week to week and game to game. And I think that's what's most concerning. And that's the thing that, and to go back to the history of this football team, and that's the part that gets the most challenging. And I want to address something too that you brought up about Max is that, like you said, even they said in the broadcast, like sometimes you got to save a player from himself. And I respect Max Crosby like to the utmost degree and his willingness to be on the football field to the utmost degree. And I don't think it's a surrender when you pull him back and you pull him off the field, because if he doesn't have help, and that's the thing is I think that's why they felt compelled to leave him on the field, is that what else are we going to do without Tyree Wilson having an impact, without Malcolm Kuntz because he's hurt. Snowden, I know, had a sack in there, but I think that was just a rare glimmer, and it wasn't like a full on. I think it was more of a schematic in a way that play set up versus a straight up talent thing. I'm not knocking that young man. I'm not. He made the play when he had to, and he's got the sack in the column. But point being though is that play in, play out, Dalton, the red rifle, is sitting back there with all the time in the world. Yes. And so then, since we're spreading blame around, we put a little bit on Tom Telesco that when Malcolm Kuntz goes down, why are you not immediately making a play, force an edge defender? But listen, we know that people were screaming for linebackers, but they felt good about their linebackers. People were screaming for some secondary help, but they felt good about their secondary help. And that's those players were represented well, even, not well, but I mean, for the most part anyways. But edge rush, it's all Max. And so if you're going to neutralize Max Crosby with injury or double teams and schemes and whatever else, who else are we going to have there to help out? And so that's on Tom Telesco to me to get this friggin' team some help on the pass rush. Because if you're just leaving it up to Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby and no one like that, you can't do that, especially when Max has got a bum leg. So I just, to me, Scott, that's a real big indictment on the lack of movement for this football team. We've got cap space. And I know that some people, like I was talking about Yannick Ngakoue earlier this week. A lot of people gave me shit. They're like, oh, Raiders are obsessed with, you Raider fans are obsessed with Yannick Ngakoue. I'm not obsessed with them. I'm just looking at it and objectively, which is rare for me. And the idea that we have a lack of pass rush. And now we had one of the complimentary pass rusher on this football team, and Malcolm Kuntz, in a contract year, for crying out loud, is now down for the year. So what are you going to do about it, Raiders? Because they haven't done anything, Scott.
No. They haven't, and it's interesting to see what will happen after this loss, because you have Cleveland coming into Las Vegas next week. Then you got to play Denver, and everybody's, oh, Denver's worse. Denver went on the road and had a big game today, right? They won, and so you have that. Then you got to play after Denver, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's 3-0 right now. Justin Fields looks pretty dang good in that offense with some real coaching. So the Raiders need to get it together like now, because these next 3 games to me are when they have to make their stand, and they have to come out and win. They got to win. It's going to get tougher after that. So I think that you have to look at this and you have to say, yeah, is this roster ready to compete? And clearly, to your point, and to Tom Telesco, you got to go out and do something. I'm not saying you just sign anybody, but you certainly need help at the edge position, because you have injuries and you have Tyree Wilson, who's not playing that position anymore. So that's something that has to be done, because if the defense is going to hit on all cylinders, you got to have a pass rush. You're going to be playing much better teams than you played today in the next few weeks, and they're not going to give you any more than this team did. So you better put it together. I mean, so I agree with you 100% there. What they do is the question: who's out there? Who can they sign that's not going to maybe long term? Now, some people were also calling for Hassan Reddick, of course, his holdout with the Jets. Now he's going to be really, really expensive. Okay,
he's like,
he wants
29.
Yeah, he wants a new deal. So if you want to sign him, if you want to go out and get him, I don't know what it's going to take to get it from the Jets. They gave up a pretty low pick for him from the Eagles, because the Eagles are trying to get rid of him. So we'll see what happens. That might be something they explore, because you need to kind of turn the tide now, but that's not going to help the offense. The defense needs work, like you said, but that offensive unit and what they're doing schematically, what they're doing with personnel, what they're doing at quarterback, it all has to change, and it has to come together in a certain way, or this team's not going to be able to win, because you're not going to be able to score points.
At what point, Scott, we all talked about the dispelling the rumors of Devontae Adams getting traded, and my thought prompted by someone that's in the chat there and made a mention there. At what point does there a value? Because that's the end of the day, and Raider fan, don't jump on me for this. You got to look at it from a business perspective, and players, your value and your cost is what weighs out, right?
Yeah.
And so, at what point does the value of what that could return from a trade in, say, for a defensive player, or you know what I mean? At what point does that make sense? Because we all kind of agreed going into this season that, okay, if the Raiders are 2-6 heading into the trade deadline, that's when they would make a move and trade Devontae, and then maybe bolster the defense and whatnot. I'm not being a proponent of this idea, Raider Nation. So again, don't crush me out there. I'm just asking the question in a fair way. At what point, if we want to make those things happen, well, what's the biggest opportunity for us to gain capital via personnel or draft or otherwise? It's Devontae. So at what point, Scott, what do you think in terms of how many, so here we got this stretch, right? We got the Browns, and then we got to deal with the Steelers, who were great today. We got to deal with them. Like, is that getting to the point then where maybe you start considering these kinds of things? I mean,
yeah, I get what you're saying with that, because we've talked about it on the show a lot. And I think you get to a point where, yes, if the season goes that poorly, that you have 1 or 2 wins when you get to game 7 or game 8, like you said, around the trade deadline, then to me, that's when he would have his most value, because there might be teams out there right now that are doing just fine, and they have somebody go down with an injury, or they do better than expected, and they're fighting for a division title, and they're in need a receiver. So you could have
Saints.
Yeah, there you go. You can have exactly. You can have much more leverage as you get closer to that. But I think if you do that eventually, and like you, I'm not saying you trade them yet. Look, they're 1-2. Okay. Now, if they're 2-6, then my mind starts to switch. But if you trade him, I think it's not about now. It's about later. And so what you want is draft capital. And what I would say, though, is any Raider fans out there who are watching or listening that think you're going to get a first-round draft pick for a over 30-year-old wide receiver, you're not going to get it. Okay. So the Raiders, if they're really fortunate, they get a second somehow, but most likely it's going to be a conditional third, meaning that it's a third, and then maybe if he goes nuts for that team and they go through and they win the Super Bowl, then maybe you get a conditional second round pick or something. To me, that will be the deal because you're offloading the contract. You want draft capital because at the end of the day, if you're 2-6, you got to focus on what is your biggest need. They got lots of needs, but the biggest need is going to be quarterback. Like you said, nobody addressed the situation yet. So you're going to have to put together draft capital because now if the Raiders are 2-6, they might be in the top 5 of the draft. If they're not 2-6 and you still get to the trade deadline, you still might consider it because you might say, well, geez, none of these quarterbacks are working and we got to start thinking about the future now. And if that's the case, then I think you need to get your draft capital so that if you're at number 10 pick or number 8, that you have enough capital that you can move up. Although there's going to be 2 teams, I think, that are going to take quarterbacks early in the draft again, including Carolina, maybe. Yeah. So you're going to have to, now they lost to Carolina, so maybe they got the tiebreaker now. So, so you have to think about all of that. But to me, Scott. Yeah, I know. Well, hey, I'm trying to find positive notes here. maybe.
I don't know if that's the ray of sunshine we all needed, but it's the one we all deserve.
Oh, I remember last year everybody telling me, I just want to lose all the rest of the games so we can get the first pick of the draft. But no, listen, the offense has to be fixed. I'm not trying to be fatalistic here because as bad as it looked today, you never know. Things can turn around quickly, but they got to fix the offense. And so that's where we'll leave it. But before we go, Murf, on this show, and we're not going to wallow in self-pity too much, right? We're not going to stay here for 3 hours just bitching about a game. We already know what happened. But we are so supportive and love what the One Nation Foundation does that supports Raiders charities. That's why Murf comes on the show too, and also does so much work along with Swag Jeff and Michelle on this charity along with others. So let everybody know where your super chats, the donations go. Give them the website, give them the lowdown on the One Nation Foundation so they can help out Raiders charities.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, thank you for the platform as always. And so, yeah, we support Raiders-related charities with our nonprofit called the One Nation Foundation. We take all the money that we raise with Raiders Fan Radio and give 100% of it away to those charities like the good folks at Raider Dad who are taking underprivileged kids to Raider games, and then also the Bolitnikoff Foundation who are taking young women at risk of domestic violence and substance abuse and giving them not only safe spaces but also rehabilitative services. And thanks to your generosity, we are presenting a check to the Bolitnikoffs this coming Friday for $10,000.
Wow.
Generosity Raider Nation. Thank you so very, very much. And so, yeah, we'll be out there in Vegas. We're not staying out for the game, but we're going to be out there to attend their annual Crab Fest. And we're going to have that thing going live. So if you're around on Friday night,
yes,
we're going to have that thing going on live. Our broadcast last year, we interviewed Mike Haynes, Jim Plunkett, Phil Villapiano, of course, the great Fred Bolitnikoff. We had Dennis Haysbert, Serrano, if you need him. We had Shooter McGavin on there, Christopher McDonald. We had a lot of great guests come through and look forward to another great panel of guests coming through. And this year, Scott, we're going to leave the cameras going live. We're just going to have them going on. We had an opportunity last year to chat a little bit with Antonio Pierce, and he signed some merch for us that we sold off and donated the money to the foundation. And so if we get another opportunity like that, we're going to sit down with hopefully AP and maybe Sandra Douglas Morgan. And we don't know who we're going to get. We'll find out when we get there. But anyways, point being, though, none of that gets enabled without the generosity of Raider Nation. And so if you can help support the foundation, it's onenationfoundation.net. Go there and you can hit the donate button and directly donate there. Any of your super chats on there, I don't know what all the super chats were tonight, but 100% of those are going to go to the One Nation Foundation. So we can't thank you enough for those. And even if you can't support the foundation monetarily, all we ask for is a thumb up, a subscribe, a review. Tell your Raider friends about us, especially about Silver and Black today. It's all about that, about sharing the community of Raider Nation. Because listen, after a day like today, when we're all down, and I'll end on this, whenever I get down on my Raider feelings based on what the play was on the field, I'm always lifted up by Raider Nation. We have never lost a tailgate. We have never lost a freaking, you know what I mean? Like a gathering of friends and family and fandom. Those things will remain undefeated forever. And that's why we, tattoo this stuff on our bodies and we wear this stuff on our chest and we put it around our house. That's the beauty of Raider Nation, is that those things will never ever change. And so, the Raiders can be freaking 2-15, and that part of it won't change. It's not going to make the season not suck on the grass, but when it comes to what we are as Raider Nation, that shit's family, and that will never be affected. So thank you for what you all do out there. Thank you for support of Raiders Fan Radio and the One Nation Foundation, and of course Silver and Black today. And thank you, Scott, for the platform. Thank you for letting my big fan mouth ramble on for like 5 minutes.
Of course, always. And just great work that you guys do. And that's the thing, that covering the team for 8 years, the thing I've gotten to know so many folks who not only listen to the show, but just fans, excuse me, and members of Raider Nation. And it is amazing how much of a family it is. And I know there's other good fan bases, but none of them touch Raider Nation. It's just nothing like it in the entire world. And Murf taps into that for good causes, which is even better because that's Raider fans being together for one another and raising money and doing all those great things. So congratulations on the donation to the Crab Fest. Again, we got some stuff coming up with that. We're going to talk about it another time, but also we're going to be together in Cincinnati. We're going to, if you've got, if you still are in on the season and you plan to go to a road game and you want to come to Cincinnati, Murf and I and his team, we're going to be there live. We got something coming up. We'll announce the details very soon so that you can show up, and we'll have a show the night before, right, Murf? We're going to have a good time. Maybe have some bourbon because you'll be on the bourbon trail, so it'll be,
Well, I'm not a bourbon guy, but I'll booze with you. Well, you know that.
Yeah, I know that all too well.
You've been to the fan cave.
Oh yes.
Well, and it was funny. So last time we were together in person, you were on our turf.
Yeah.
This next come around, we're going to be on your turf. So I've already warned Swag, Jeff, and Michelle. I'm like, we gotta be ready. We gotta be ready for Scott, man. We're gonna be. I can't wait, man. We're gonna have a blast. And again, there goes back to the whole point, man. Once we all get together and have a good time and share a cocktail and enjoy our fandom and talk our stuff and smoke our stuff and do all that kind of stuff. I know you're a big cigar guy.
Yes.
We will have a blast, and it will be a good time regardless of what happens in Sunday there at what I don't even know what the name of is it all Paycor now?
It's Paycor now. Yes.
All right, there we go.
Yes.
Whatever happens at Paycor Stadium, none of that will change what's going to happen on Saturday night at the bar.
Yes. Right across the river. It's going to be fun. We won't fall in the river. I promise. We'll stay afloat. It moves a little too fast. By the way, a shout out to Rossi, our good friend, Rossi Biddle, who's watching from down under in Australia, as he always does.
Nice.
So a shout out to him, but shout out to everybody. Appreciate you guys being with us for this post-game show. And Murf, I will talk to you next week, hopefully under better circumstances.
All right. Look forward to it, Scott. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you again.
I appreciate you too, my friend. All right. For Murf, appreciate you guys being with us. And also for our producer, Mike Robier at Odyssey, who takes care of us. Great work from him, and we appreciate what he does. Also want to thank and tell you again, this show is brought to you by BetUS. Don't forget, get that 150% bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit. And you get 125% on your second and third deposits up to $2,000 by using the code YouTube150. That's right. YouTube150 gets you that. Until Tuesday, when Mo and I will be back with another show. Raider Nation, take care. I wish it was a better Sunday evening for you, but there's always next week. So staying in there. Appreciate you hanging with us, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.